Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video we are going to be talking about the difference between a balayage, a highlight, and a highlighting cap. I feel like highlighting caps have gotten a lot more attention in the last couple of months. And I figured I would do a quick in-depth video on essentially what each method actually is and which one is right for you. So the three categories that we're going to be talking about are not actual colors, they are application methods. And I do want to distinct between those two things because I feel like that is something that does tend to confuse a lot of clients. And this is important to know, even if you're going into a salon, so you can get exactly what you want. I can't tell you the amount of times someone has come in and said that they want a balayage, and then they show me a picture of something that's really contrasted. So when you want something a little bit more contrasted, that typically is a highlight. Now say you don't want to highlight all the way to the root and you do want softness at the root, and that's why you said balayage. You can still achieve that with a traditional highlight because you can always do a root tap or a root smudge and bring that root down as far as you would like. So one little tip for if you normally don't get what you want when you go into the salon or you're going into a new place, I think one of the most important things, instead of naming application methods, stick more to describing the color you want. Like, I want lighter, I want darker, I want cooler, I want more golden. That way the hairdresser can then choose what is best for you. And sometimes when someone comes in and says, I want a balayage, that gets the hairdresser thinking. And sometimes there are better methods of getting you to your desired hair color. So now let's briefly go over each application method so you have a good understanding of what they are and what they do. So let's start with a classic highlight method. This is when you weave out sections of hair that will be lightened. So being able to isolate the hair in a piece of foil so we can see exactly where the highlight's going. And because we're isolating that piece of hair in a foil, you are able to get a greater lift because of the heat that will be conducted inside of that foil, thus giving you that more contrasted look. So this is great for if you want maximum lightness. So whether you want to be more of an all-over blonde and you want a huge pop of brightness, highlights is your go-to. Also, if you want big pops of brightness, but you still want a lot of contrast. So rather than focusing on how you want the root to look and whether you want a lived-in look versus a very fresh highlighted look, think more about the amount of blonde you want and the contrast that you want. And then there is balayage, and I feel like this word gets thrown around for good reason because balayages are absolutely gorgeous. I do think that this application method gets used so many times when you initially want a highlight. So the word balayage in French means like a sweeping motion, like a painted on, very effortless, artistically placed kind of motion. And traditionally a balayage is done without foils, meaning you're just freehand painting where you want to see brightness. Now, if you're not isolating the hair, and this is where hairdressers started getting really creative and they would do the plastic wrap. But the second that you need to do that, that means that you want extra lift. And this to me is one of those cases that why not just do a more traditional highlight? You can make those pieces of brightness as thick or thin as you'd like. And you're isolating the hair, meaning you get greater brightness and you don't run the risk of the lightener bleeding onto other sections of hair that you don't want to lighten. So freehand painting, when there is no foil or plastic wrap, the hair is breathing as it's processing, so you get less lift. Traditionally, a balayage is not meant to be super contrasty. It's supposed to be really sun-kissed and almost warm. And then lastly is the foiling cap, which basically inspired this video because I've gotten so many questions over the last couple of months regarding this cap. So basically foiling caps have been around for the longest time, and then they got a really bad rap because of the kind of stringy, kind of very thin highlight look that it gave at the roots. The second that a softer root came in, that style was out. But now that we have access to amazing products and much better education on this, where we always root tap or root smudge a client after basically any lightening service. Using a highlighting cap, as long as you do a root tap on after, can actually look super beautiful and give it almost this thin, effortless baby light look, because we've eliminated that issue, which was that kind of stringy root color. Now, let me explain who this works for. So if you're starting off with virgin color, meaning your natural color, and this doesn't mean I had highlights a year ago and then I dyed my hair back to my natural color. That is still not your natural color. You have just artificially reached your previous color. So if you have virgin hair, meaning there's no lightener left in your hair, if you have had any color, it was over 5 years ago, and you're left with your 100% natural hair color, doing a highlighting cap is great for you. So long as you root smudge, it can be a beautiful color. Now, my issue with this method is that when you're pulling the highlights out of the cap, you have no control of what piece of hair you're picking up. So when I'm highlighting with foils, I can see exactly where there's a highlight and I can avoid that piece and grab a new section to add a brand new highlight. Now, if you have any previous hair color on your hair or any previous lightening service, you will have pockets of light underneath. And when using that highlighting cap, when you're picking out the pieces of hair, you don't know what you're picking up. So the issue is after having all the pieces picked out, you will have some that are highlights and some that are not. That is already leaving so much room for disaster, because technically you can only apply one formula all over. So if you formulate for the dark pieces, meaning I want to lift the dark pieces to be perfectly blonde, that's doing a disservice to your existing blonde pieces, because now that formula is way too strong for previously lightened hair. But if you formulate something that's way too delicate, it's going to be fine on your previously blonde pieces, but it's not going to lift you at all enough on your dark pieces, and you are going to be left with probably a lot of warmth and unwanted tones. So basically, it's almost a foolproof way if, again, your base is naturally one color, but the second you have any other color going on underneath, it can end up being a huge problem, and you're absolutely not going to get the beautiful results that we all see on TikTok. And in doing virtual consults, which I started offering a couple of months ago, which is where you can book out a slot of time where you and I can consult, and I can help you with any at-home hair formulations. And the question about highlighting caps has come up a lot. And I understand, because it does eliminate, the hand-eye coordination with the foil and a comb, and it does make that process so much easier. I tend to have a huge issue when you can't expertly decide which piece you're lightening and which piece you're leaving behind. And it's the only method that you don't really have control of how thick or thin you want the highlights. And then from these three methods, of course, there is, like I mentioned a couple of times, there's the root smudge, there's the root tap, and of course, all over toning to achieve your absolute perfect tone. All right, guys, I hope this video was helpful. Next week, I'll be coming at you with a hands-on tutorial where I will be doing hair on an actual client and sharing one of my absolute favorite techniques and favorite formulas. If you're here for the hair stuff, come by on Saturdays. And if you want a little more me and behind the scenes and what's going on, go ahead and check out my vlogs that are uploaded on Wednesdays. Also, super exciting, it is almost fall, which will be the launch of my Learn to Live and Look Luxe Masterclass. And I'm going to start sharing little teasers, so make sure to follow me on Instagram. Also, if you found this video helpful, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and that notification bell. And your comments, every time that I get a comment saying, like, I've been following you for years, it just totally warms up my heart that you guys have followed me through basically as I grew up and all my stages of life. But yeah, that is it for me. I love you guys, and I hope you have an amazing weekend. Bye, guys.